Lacan delivered Aggressiveness in Psychoanalysis at a conference in Brussels in 1948. In this text, Lacan explores why aggressiveness is a fundamental part of human nature. He does not see aggression as a simple animal urge or a biological defense mechanism. He explains that human aggressiveness is deeply linked to how our identity and our egos are originally built. Our aggression comes from the very way we form a sense of self. Lacan presents his theory through five main points, which he calls theses. Lacan begins his first thesis by talking about the specific setting of psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis relies entirely on talk and verbal communication. A patient speaks directly to an analyst. This dialogue creates a shared space between two distinct subjects. Science often tries to get rid of subjective feelings by using machines or recordings. However, psychology cannot do this. Only a human subject can understand meaning, and every meaning requires a subject. When patients speak freely in therapy, they show their deep aggressive intentions through their words. This proves their aggressiveness is not an abstract concept. It is a live subjective experience that happens within a dialogue between two people. It is not something we can measure with a machine. It is felt and expressed between human beings. In his second thesis, Lacan explains that in therapy, patients often show open hostility toward the psychoanalyst. This hostility does not usually lead to physical violence. Instead, it is expressed through facial expressions, tones of voice, or silent resistance. These psychological gestures can be far more powerful than actual physical force. For example, a strict parent can terrify a child simply by being present. The parent does not need to hit the child. The mental image of punishment is already enough to affect the child's mind. Lacan introduces the word imago to describe these powerful internal mental images. Psychoanalysis uncovers many hidden terrifying imagos in the human mind. These include fantasies of being mutilated, cut open, or torn into pieces. Lacan calls these the imagos of the fragmented body. We can see these themes everywhere. Young children spontaneously tell stories or play games about pulling off doll heads and cutting open bellies. We also see these scary, broken images in the famous chaotic paintings of Hieronymus Bosch. Human beings carry a deep internal fear of physical collapse and fragmentation. This fear is always present beneath the surface of our minds. In his third thesis, Lacan explains that to help patients reveal these hidden imagos, the psychoanalyst must behave in a very specific way. The analyst sits quietly and stays as neutral as possible. The analyst hides personal tastes, feelings, and expressions. Lacan describes the analyst as a perfectly smooth, clear mirror. This neutrality is necessary because patients often try to project their feelings onto the doctor. Patients may want the analyst to be an exact copy of themselves, or they might seek a savior. Lacan says that if an analyst acts like a replica of the patient, it will trigger massive uncontrollable anxiety. By remaining like a smooth mirror, the analyst allows the patient's internal bad objects and hidden paranoia to come to light safely. The spatial gap between the silent analyst and the speaking patient forces the patient to face their own inner struggles. The patient cannot hide behind the analyst's personality. They must confront their own mind. The fourth thesis is the central theory of Lacan's essay, to explain why humans are inherently aggressive. Lacan points back to his famous theory of the mirror stage. When a human infant is very young, its body is weak and uncoordinated. It feels physically broken and scattered on the inside. However, between 6 and 18 months of age, the infant looks into a mirror and sees its reflection. The reflection looks complete, solid, and unified. The infant falls in love with this perfect external image. This process is called narcissistic identification. The infant adopts this reflection as its ego, but this creates a permanent psychological trap. The infant's identity is based on something outside of itself. Because of this, the human ego is built on a fundamental lie and misrecognition. Whenever a person sees another human being, a conflict begins. The other person looks unified and perfect. The individual either wants to be that person or wants to destroy that person because they threaten the ego's fragile illusion of perfection. Therefore, human aggressiveness is not a simple choice. It is a permanent tension that is built directly into the structure of our identity. We are in constant rivalry with ourselves and with others. We cannot escape it. In his final thesis, Lacan connects individual psychology to the wider social world. He shows how children slowly learn to manage this aggressive tension through the Oedipus complex. Normally, a child internalizes the rules and image of the father. This creates the ego ideal, which helps pacify primary aggressiveness by channeling energy into healthy cultural activities. Lacan calls this sublimation. However, Lacan warns that modern society is experiencing a major psychological crisis. Traditional societies used to have a strong cultural systems, common rituals, and shared myths that help bind human aggressiveness. Modern Western society has abandoned these traditional structures. Instead, our culture promotes a highly utilitarian view of mankind and celebrates the narcissistic ego above all else. This constant promotion of the individual ego fuels massive amounts of internal anxiety and competition. Because people are forced to compete constantly, modern life is filled with deep resentment and hidden hatred. Lacan points out that even well meaning social movements like philanthropy or altruism often hide deep aggressive motives underneath. Society has also wiped out the traditional balances between male and female principles, leading to an ongoing battle between the sexes. Our modern world makes aggression worse, not better. Lacan concludes by stating that psychoanalysis has a very unique and heavy responsibility. Other fields of psychology try to ignore subjectivity or simply force patients to adapt to a broken competitive society. Lacan strongly opposes this. He argues that ego is not a peaceful master of reality, it is a defensive structure born out of reality, alienation, and misrecognition. Aggressiveness in psychoanalysis shows us that human conflict cannot be resolved by simply asking people to be nicer to one another. Aggression is a structural part of our psychological fabric. It is woven into who we are. True psychoanalytic therapy does not try to hide this tension. It uses the quiet, careful setting of the clinic to help patients unpack their hidden imagos, see through the illusions of their narcissistic egos, and understand the deep truths of their unconscious minds. Therapy helps us accept our aggression rather than pretend it does not exist. This acceptance is the first step toward real understanding and peace.